Bethesda is continuing to drop exciting new info about Starfield pretty much every day at the moment, so I'm going to break down all the new info for you over the last 2 weeks that I think you'd like to know, including developer interviews, Gamescom presentations, new trailers, and Q&As. And let's start with some general overview info, just in case you missed it, and so we're all on the same page, because review videos and journalistic scoring of the game will be released on the 31st of August, as officially confirmed by Bethesda, which is the date when the embargo lifts and comes to an end. So I would earmark that day in particular if you're interested in hearing what the initial verdict is out of the gate. And regardless of the reviews, Bethesda will be really pleased at the moment because the game has officially gone gold, which, if you didn't know what that means, it's a gaming industry phrase or moniker which refers to Gold Master, which is when the game enters a specific stage of development that means it's in pretty good condition with minimal bugs and is ready for public release. Now, of course, that doesn't mean it's perfect, but it's in a solid state for day one, and that's encouraging to hear if you're a Bethesda veteran. Additionally, if you've pre-ordered the game on Xbox, you can pre-download Starfield right now, as it's 126 gigabytes, so it will take a bit of time if you've got a slow internet connection, just in case you didn't know. But if you're playing Starfield on Steam or Xbox Game Pass, you will be able to pre-download on the 30th of August with a big boy 139 gigabyte download, and I have no idea why there is such a large disparity between the Xbox download sizes there, but if you do, please do let me know down below. I'm curious to know why that's the case. Now, as for release dates and specific times that you'll be able to play Starfield, and time zones I mean, that will depend on whether you've pre-ordered the Premium Deluxe Edition or the Collector's Edition of the game, which will allow you to begin playing early in the morning of September the 1st, or in some cases the 31st of August, which is 5 days earlier than the standard edition of the game, which publicly releases on September the 6th. In fact, Chunky Monkey on Reddit created a wonderful international time zone map here, which tells you exactly what time and date you'll be able to play Starfield, as you can see here. So great work from him. Additionally, James Cook commented on the recent Starfield preview video I made last week about cloud streaming, which I actually forgot to mention in that video. So thanks to him for flagging that, because yes, if you have a new Samsung TV, you will be able to stream play Starfield directly on the television if you are a Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, which means you technically don't need an Xbox to play this game. In fact, you can play it on an Xbox One via Xbox Cloud Gaming software as well. So definitely worth exploring if you don't have a current gen Xbox and you do have a fast internet connection. And of course, if you want to try out Starfield with minimal investment your side. Now, we also picked up a few more details thanks to Todd Howard, the game director, who appeared on stage at the annual Gamescom event in Cologne, Germany this past week, as well as releasing a new live-action promo trailer of Starfield, which showed off a few bells and whistles that will be in this game. But as for Todd, he stated that we will be starting the game as a miner on a distant planet, where we will then go on to encounter an artifact, and after touching it, it will then cause our character to see a different space-time dimension. And that makes sense now, really, because they've been teasing that footage repeatedly over the last few years, so it's good to get clarification on what that all means now, because he also went on to say that at the moment of touching the artifact, that's when the game transitions into this character creation screen, and after designing yourself in game, we then go on to follow the main quest line to subsequently join Constellation and find more of these artifacts around the galaxy. Additionally, we did pick up confirmation from a new interview from the Bethesda team with British GQ that there is a new Game Plus mode on launch, which means that you can play through the storyline after finishing it for a first time without losing certain items. And it hasn't been specified yet what those items will be in terms of being carried over for a second playthrough, but the team does mention in the article that New Game Plus will be unique and it has an exciting twist on it. So it is really pleasing to hear that this mechanic is in the game from the get-go, and they're doing something different with it to enhance that replayability long term. So that's really encouraging to hear. Now, if you are enjoying the video so far, please do leave a very swift like down below. So thanks very much for your support. And good news, I'm running a Starfield game giveaway. You just need to be a subscriber of the channel to enter, and link is in the pinned comments. So very best of luck to you. Now, Gamescom aside, Bethesda have also been sneakily updating their main website over the last few weeks with new official info about the game's storyline, factions, and main characters in the game. Of course, these aren't major storyline spoilers here, so don't worry, but they do give us more context behind where the game takes place and how humanity has reached the position it's in when Starfield begins. And I'll briefly summarize this for you now, because it starts with humans first arriving on Mars and colonizing space in 2050, and then 100 or so years later in 2159, humans go on to establish the faction of the United Colonies, which is seen as the first major de facto organized human civilization in space. Now, at this time, other outposts are explored and settled on by humans, which is when the Freestar Collective faction is formed around 30 years after the founding of the United Colonies. And as the United Colonies continues to expand their own borders in space, they begin encroaching on the people who have settled in these nomad planets. And this is where the Freestar Collective comes together as a group of planets to object to the United Colonies expansion, and the colony war begins. And then it subsequently ends in a stalemate peace in 2311. Now, the timeline then jumps forward 20 years later into 2330, and this is where we come in, mining ores on that distant mining planet that Todd mentioned earlier, where we begin our Starfield journey, which now sets the scene very well for the beginning of the game. Now, you may also know that the game's lead artist, Emil Pagliarulo, and the lead quest designer, Will Shen, launched a Q&A session on Discord last week, where they divulged a lot of new and interesting info, which I'm going to walk you through now in sections so you get all the highlights, starting with a confirmed jail system, which means that Starfield is similar to Skyrim rather than Fallout 4's Commonwealth mechanic, which means that if you break the laws of a specific government faction and then are subsequently caught partaking in that illegal act, you will then be sent to that faction's jail, where you'll need to pay a fine to be released, or, as Emil stated, you can even try to resist the arrest initially and attempt to escape. And while we're on the topic of criminality, Will Shen did expand on the double agent mechanic, where we'll be able to infiltrate the renegade pirate faction called the Crimson Fleet on behalf of the United Colonies cis-def military branch, with Emil stating that the questline is like an FBI agent going undercover, infiltrating the mafia in an attempt to bring them down from the inside. They also confirmed that you won't be able to play through Starfield in a pacifist manner, so in a non-lethal way essentially, but Emil did go on to say further that he couldn't comfortably say you can complete the entire game without killing someone. And he then said, after stating that the development team decided early on in the development process not to make pacifism an option. So really contrasting statements there, and I reckon someone will complete Starfield in a no-kill speedrun, so we're just gonna have to wait and see for confirmation on that one. Now, criminal and pacifist playthroughs aside, we also picked up some more insight about religions in the game, with three main faiths playing a significant role throughout the narrative. The first being the Sanctum Universum, who we now know, thanks to Will, is only a couple decades old when we begin Starfield, but in that short period of time, they have gained a lot of prominence and believe that fundamentally there is a god or creator out there in the universe, and that humanity's ability to travel the stars brings them closer to God. Their members are called Universals, who also believe that the ability to gravity jump with their spaceship is God's way of saying, I've allowed you to do this, come and find me. Now, our second religion is the Enlightened, who are organized atheists that focus on humanitarian and community work throughout the galaxy, where they believe every life is important and should be respected. In fact, their belief is that there is no higher power, and humans should teach one another to take care of themselves and bring more people on board with this line of thinking through community outreach programs on distant planets throughout the galaxy. Now, our third is the House of Varun, who follow the celestial entity called the Great Serpent, with Emil confirming that the origins to this religion began with a passenger experiencing a vision whilst gravity jumping through space, where he met a great serpent and brought back a mandate which essentially states, join us and get on board with our religion, or you will get devoured by a big snake that will then encircle the universe and kill everyone but the House of Varun. In fact, Emil said he got the House of Varun logo tattooed on his wrist, so he really digs these guys. Now, alongside religions, we also picked up more info regarding companions and crew, with confirmation that there will be over 20 named characters with backstories that will be available for us to recruit to our crew. These 20 plus companions can carry our stuff, which essentially doubles our inventory space. So that's quite similar to Skyrim, if I'm kind of remembering correctly there. But the difference between these hireable companions compared to the 4 main storyline companions from Constellation is that they won't be romanceable, just as an FYI. That said, Emil did clarify that these recruitable companions will contribute to the main storyline quests in very big ways and will be able to follow you around everywhere you go if you want them to. Incidentally, Will Shen did confirm off the back of Emil's comments that even though they will be with us every step of the way if we want them to be, those being companions, we won't be able to level up their skills or perks. So when you look at this screen, if I just pause and zoom in here for you, all of their abilities and skills will remain static. So it's important you recruit people who are standouts in their specific field of expertise, because Emil said that there's really sweet moments in the game where you see a companion who, as an example, is an expert in combat because they will do a significant amount of damage with the weapon that they're proficient in. So don't overlook companions in this game, essentially is the crux of that Q&A. But another thing that you shouldn't overlook, and that's the opportunity of smuggling contraband from planet to planet for a very tasty profit, because Emil also went on to confirm that we can specifically hide contraband in very specific and very special ship modules that we can purchase in our shipbuilding yard, which will subsequently earn us a nice income if we become well versed in how to smuggle efficiently in the game. That said, Emil clarified again that the economy in the game is fixed and cannot be exploited through these types of mechanics. But of course, the prices of bought and sold goods do change in-game based on the skills that we specifically choose. So that's good to bear in mind there as well if you want to prioritize a smuggler playthrough. So focus on skills that's going to make you the most money. And actually, while we're on the topic of visiting planets with our ship, I did forget to mention earlier in the companion breakdown that Emil did say that when we do assign our recruited companions to work at Outposts specifically, we will only need to pay them once as a higher fee instead of paying them regular salaries or relocation costs when reassigning them across to different planets, which I think is a really good thing in my opinion, is it's one less thing to keep track of. Now, as Todd Howard said in the direct presentation back in June, Starfield is a modder's paradise and part of Bethesda's DNA, where the game has been optimized in the game files for modders to get stuck in from launch. In fact, according to Peter Ovo and his sources on Twitter, link in the description by the way, Bethesda have given early access to a modder who is working on optimizing the game for NVIDIA card users and DLSS, which stands for Deep Learning Super Sampling. That is a type of video rendering that boosts frame rates by rendering the game at 1080p resolution and then upscaling it via AI behind the scenes before it hits your output at 4K. So good news for NVIDIA card holders there. Additionally, someone has already created the Millennium Falcon with the in-game modules shown so far. And of course, there is a nice bit of Photoshop work here, but I wanted to get it in this video because it's super cool. And it also demonstrates the kind of shipbuilding customization that is possible. And it's really great to see. I can't wait to get stuck in. But perhaps something you may not want to see is a couple of achievements that have been published by Insider Gaming, as well as shown on the public gaming profiles of some people who are already playing Starfield right now. So I'm going to drop a polite spoiler warning here, just in case you'd rather not know, because even if they're not storyline based, it's the right thing to do in my opinion. And the first one here being the Reach for the Stars achievement, which confirms the suspected max level being 100 in this game. We also have the Shipping Magnet achievement here, where we'll need to connect 5 outposts with cargo links, which is a encouraging trade network mechanic, and it's good to see that in this achievement here. We also have another called Fleet Commander, where we'll need to collect 10 ships in game, which raises that presumed ship limit from 9, which we did see showcased in Starfield Direct in June. And as discussed earlier, we do know that we'll be able to smuggle cargo as confirmed by Emil and in this achievement as well. And we'll also pick up another for recruiting 10 separate companions. And I do wonder if that's the cap limit on companions, or if we can actually recruit all 20 companions that Will mentioned earlier on in the video. Now that's just a few highlights for you there, but if you do want to get completely ready for Starfield when it launches, click the video on your screen right now for a complete breakdown of everything that we know in the last 2 years. Hopefully I'll see you there in just a second. Big thanks to Nika, my co-content creator, for helping me make this video. It's not possible without her. Cheers for stopping by, and as always, coffee is on me.